In travel news, for May 6, 2025, we talk about the wave of delays and cancellations at Newark Airport caused by an air traffic controller shortage and what it means for travelers. But before we begin, I'm Brandon with the Adept Traveler, an award-winning travel agency that makes travel so easy. Even a blind traveler like myself can do it. And now, Today in Travel. Newark Liberty International Airport is experiencing significant travel disruptions in recent weeks. Travelers passing through Newark Airport over the past week have encountered unusually high numbers of flight delays and cancellations. The culprit behind the chaos is a severe shortage of air traffic controllers in the region, compounded by other factors such as weather and runway construction. This situation has deep roots going back years, even to before 2020, but it has flared up dramatically in recent days. Over the last few days, hundreds of flights were delayed or canceled, prompting at least one airline to proactively cut back its schedule. Alarmingly, even an air traffic controller reportedly warned the public to avoid Newark at all costs, amid concerns that the situation was unsafe. For 8 consecutive days and counting, flights at Newark Liberty International Airport have been heavily disrupted. Each day has brought hundreds of delayed flights and dozens of cancellations, far beyond normal levels. Over one recent weekend, Newark saw around 480 delays and more than 140 flight cancellations in a single day, and similar numbers persisted through the week. Passengers in terminals have been greeted with crowded gates, long lines at customer service desks, and jam-packed departure boards showing delayed notices next to many flights. The trouble peaked in the first days of May when severe staffing shortages hit the facility that manages Newark's air traffic. On one day, arrival delays into Newark averaged 4 hours, and airlines were forced to divert some incoming flights to other airports because there simply weren't enough air traffic controllers to handle them. Thunderstorms and low cloud ceilings added to the mess, as did ongoing construction that has temporarily closed 2 of Newark's 3 major runways. With only one runway fully operational, any slowdown anywhere in the system quickly cascades. And that's exactly what happened. By the end of the week, Newark's operations were still not back to normal. At the heart of Newark's meltdown is a staffing crisis among air traffic controllers. In late April, a critical technical failure occurred at the regional air traffic control facility that directs planes in and out of Newark's airspace. Controllers temporarily lost radar and communications with the aircraft they were handling, a frightening scenario that forced them into emergency protocols. Following this incident, a significant number of controllers took leave under federal safety regulations, effectively removing about 1/5 of the workforce overnight. This was not an organized walkout or strike, but rather a reaction to an equipment outage that underscored just how strained the system has become. The result was a sudden, dramatic shortfall in staffing for Newark's air traffic control, on top of an already existing shortage. News of the controller shortage has raised alarm about aviation safety at Newark. One veteran air traffic controller, speaking anonymously to a reporter, went so far as to urge travelers, don't fly into Newark, avoid Newark at all costs. Such a stark warning is virtually unheard of, and it highlights the level of concern even within the ranks of aviation professionals. The FAA has stressed that despite the challenges, it is maintaining safety first. However, the agency did acknowledge that Newark Airport cannot handle its usual volume of flights under these staffing conditions. For now, air traffic into Newark is being metered and managed as best as possible with the personnel available, but delays are inevitable. This situation has essentially forced a de facto cap on how many flights can land or take off each hour, simply because there aren't enough controllers to direct them all safely. Airlines have responded to the New York disruption with emergency measures. United Airlines, which operates a major hub at Newark, announced on May 2nd that it will cancel 35 round-trip flights per day at Newark until the situation improves. This amounts to roughly 10% of United's schedule at Newark and is intended to reduce strain on the system. The CEO of United said it was a disappointing decision, but a necessary one to protect our customers given the circumstances. He noted that Newark was already on a reduced schedule. A portion of flights had been trimmed ahead of time, and yet the structural staffing issues at the FAA left no choice but to pull down even more flights. Other carriers at Newark are also consolidating some flights or using larger aircraft to carry the same number of passengers in fewer trips. Airlines are proactively advising customers of schedule changes, and travelers are being rebooked on alternate flights, sometimes via different airports, as carriers scramble to accommodate everyone. The FAA, for its part, has implemented special allowances to help manage the crisis. It has extended a waiver that lets airlines temporarily operate fewer flights in the New York City area without losing their future takeoff and landing slots. In normal times, airlines must use at least 80% of their slots or risk them being reassigned. But acknowledging the controller shortage, the FAA first relaxed this rule in 2023 and has continued to extend the waiver since. This means airlines can cut back frequency at Newark, as well as JFK and LaGuardia airports, through the busy summer travel season without long-term penalties. In effect, this encourages carriers to scale down to what the air traffic control system can handle. United and other major airlines, through the industry group Airlines for America, have even asked the FAA to keep this flexibility in place through October 2025 and beyond, anticipating that staffing challenges won't vanish quickly. New temporary fixes are also being tried. Last year, the FAA shifted responsibility for New York's approach and departure traffic from the severely understaffed New York Terminal Radar Approach Control Center to another facility in Philadelphia. This reassignment was meant to spread out the workload, though critics note it is like robbing Peter to pay Paul. It moved some controllers to Philadelphia and potentially shorted New York's other airports. During the recent meltdown, the Philadelphia Center itself came under strain managing Newark's airspace, illustrating how interlinked the region's air traffic system is. On May 5th, the U.S. Transportation Secretary visited the Philadelphia Control Center to assess the situation. He and FAA officials have assured the public they are pursuing solutions, from technical upgrades to fast-tracking the hiring of new controllers. At press conferences, the U.S. Transportation Secretary described the nation's air traffic control infrastructure as incredibly old, noting that some systems still rely on decades-old technology, such as floppy disks and copper wiring. And he emphasized plans to modernize the equipment to prevent future failures. While the current headlines focus on Newark, the problem didn't appear overnight. Air traffic control staffing issues have been building for many years, and industry experts have been sounding the alarm well before 2020. The Newark, New York area has been especially affected. The key facility that used to handle Newark was chronically understaffed for much of the past decade. Nationwide, the FAA has struggled to replace retiring controllers at the needed pace. The recent pandemic worsened the situation as the FAA's training academy in Oklahoma City was shut down or limited for months in 2020, interrupting the pipeline of new trainees. Many veteran controllers took early retirement or left during that period as well. By 2022, when air travel demand roared back to near pre-pandemic levels, there simply weren't enough certified controllers in the system. This led to delays not just in Newark, but in other busy regions. For instance, Florida saw numerous flight holdups in summer of 2022, partially due to short-staffed control centers. In 2023, the FAA publicly acknowledged the staffing shortfalls in the New York area. As a stopgap, it asked airlines to voluntarily cut summer flights by up to 10% at Newark, JFK, and LaGuardia to prevent gridlock. Airlines complied, trimming some frequencies. Those moves likely averted even worse delays, but they didn't solve the core issue. By late 2023, data showed that the New York Terminal Radar Approach Control Center had only about 130 certified controllers on staff versus a target of 226 needed to handle the traffic. Newark's control tower itself had 28 controllers, when roughly 37 are considered necessary for smooth operations. Similar gaps existed at other facilities around the country. FAA officials and the National Air Traffic Controllers Association both agreed that staffing is thousands of people below where it should be. Coming into 2025, the FAA was about 3,500 controllers short of its overall goal nationwide, and that was before this latest Newark crisis. Everyone knew that a bottleneck in the system could trigger trouble, and the events of this spring have brought those fears to life. Newark Airport's recent troubles offer a stark example of how fragile the air system can be when critical infrastructure isn't adequately supported. The air traffic controller shortage is a classic behind-the-scenes issue that most travelers don't think about until something goes wrong. In the New York area, a convergence of factors turned a chronic problem into an acute meltdown. Imagine an already understaffed control team suddenly losing a chunk of its people after a technology failure. Pair that with bad weather and reduced runway capacity, and you get the perfect storm that stranded thousands of passengers. The fact that delays in the New York airspace can ripple outward and disrupt flights nationwide underscores just how interconnected the national airspace system is. Industry data indicates that as much as 75% of flight delays across the United States can be traced back to bottlenecks in the New York City region. When Newark sneezes, the rest of the network can catch a cold. The response by airlines and the FAA in this crisis shows a shift towards realism and cooperation. In the past, airlines might have been reluctant to cut flights, since fewer flights means less revenue and fewer options for travelers. However, United Airlines' decision to pull down flights at Newark preemptively and similar calls from airline trade groups to extend the slot waiver indicate that carriers recognize reliability is more important right now than sheer volume. The FAA's willingness to relax slot rules and even consider capping flights is also a notable change. It reflects an understanding that forcing too many flights into an overloaded system helps no one. These adjustments, while frustrating in the short term, as you might find fewer flight time choices out of Newark, for example, can reduce massive last-minute disruptions. It's essentially controlled pain now to avoid uncontrolled chaos. Looking ahead, the big question is how quickly the underlying issues can be fixed. Training a new air traffic controller to full qualification can take 2 to 3 years or more, and That's assuming the FAA can hire enough candidates and get them through a very challenging program. The agency has announced new hiring incentives, such as bonuses for completing training or agreeing to work in high-need locations, such as New York, which should help attract and retain talent. There's also talk of investing tens of billions of dollars in modernizing the air traffic control systems technology, which is welcome news, given some systems are literally from the last century. But these are long-term solutions. Travelers likely will not feel the benefit this summer or even by the next holiday. Realistically, it may take until 2026 or probably 2027 for controller staffing levels to catch up to demand. In the meantime, we may see continued use of flight schedule reductions during peak periods to keep the system stable. Other regions could experience similar crunches if they have their own staffing or equipment failures, a concern officials have openly mentioned, though the Northeast remains the biggest worry. For the average traveler, this means planning is key. Travel disruptions like those at Newark can and will happen occasionally until these systematic fixes take hold. We can take away a few lessons from Newark's ordeal. Build extra time into your trips. Stay informed on industry news if you're planning travel during busy seasons, and don't assume that just because a flight is scheduled, it will be operating on time. Flexibility and backups are your friends in this era. On the bright side, the collective pressure from airlines, unions, and the public is prompting action. The issue is out in the open, and resources are finally being marshaled to address it. That gives hope that Newark Airport and the rest of the U.S. air travel system will become more resilient in the coming years. For travelers flying through Newark Airport and the surrounding region, the current situation is undoubtedly frustrating. Nobody wants their vacation or weekend getaway derailed by unexpected airport delays. However, knowing what's behind these Newark Airport delays can help you better navigate them. The air traffic control shortage and related problems are a national challenge, but Newark just happens to be feeling the worst of it right now. If you have a trip coming up, keep an eye on Newark's status and your flight schedule. Things can change quickly. Use the tools at your disposal: airline apps for real-time updates, the FAA's airport status website for delay alerts, and travel advisors if you booked through one. If your flight does get significantly delayed or canceled, remember that you do have rights. U.S. Airlines must allow you to rebook without fees or offer a refund if they cancel your flight. Don't hesitate to proactively contact the airline about alternate routings, such as going through a different airport that day. In a broader sense, patience and preparation are essential. This summer, consider hedging your bets by purchasing travel insurance that covers trip interruptions or using credit cards that provide delay benefits. Those can cushion the financial blow of the unexpected overnight stay. Also, think about alternate airports around the New York metropolitan area. For instance, flights from JFK or LaGuardia might be options, or even Philadelphia, which is a bit further but could be worth it if Newark is in gridlock. As the FAA works to straighten out staffing and upgrade its systems, we will hopefully see fewer episodes like this in the future. Until then, staying informed and flexible is the best strategy. Newark Airport is a vital gateway for the region and will continue to be. And with some planning and the right mindset, you can still make your journey through Newark smoother despite the bumps in the road and sky. Today in Travel is brought to you by The Adept Traveler, an award-winning travel agency that specializes in making travel easier for everyone. From the novice to the expert, from the able-bodied to the disabled traveler, it's our belief that everybody deserves to travel well. Until next time, travel well, my friends.